Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And today we're talking about a topic that I think a lot of people don't really talk about. And it's about all of the quote unquote spiritual teachers that are out there. And I can start by saying that when I first, had my first spiritual awakening, right? Because we have many, I was super naive. And so when I walked into the world of spirituality, I was like, oh, you guys must all know something that I don't know. And you guys must all just be connected to something that I'm not connected to. So let me listen to every channel, every teacher, and just accept everything as truth. That's literally what I did. So I had entered this phase for years in my life where like anything and everything that I could consume, I was consuming, and I would just believe everything. And I was super naive. And then, of course, as it is on the journey, you are going to move through all kinds of things when you first start out. And I had to move through, wait, maybe what everyone is saying isn't true. And that was a huge blow to me because I was doing and this is a wound that I have where I just believe anything anyone says. It's a part of my upbringing with Christianity. And like my mother was very much like, this is truth and there's nothing else that's truth. This is just it. And so I've been, I don't know if the word indoctrinated since I was little to believe that, if this is it, then this is it. And so I brought all of that energy into spirituality. And so just everything, everybody. Oh, you're channeling this, you're channeling that. Great. You must be, and you must be. And it wasn't until I started to see through the cracks of certain spiritual quote unquote teachers and leaders that I was like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't all what I thought it was. And then came the other awakening to most of the people who claim to be spiritual teachers out there. Who are they even channeling? And what are they even channeling? And how do we know that they're actually channeling truth? Or beings of the light, right? Let's say that. And because of this work, right? Because of what we're taught at Master Self University, it's all about discerning, feeling, understanding subtle energies. And when you start to become a master in that, you can start to feel when people speak. You can start to feel when something doesn't feel right and trusting that and going into that. And so that's been incredible for me now because now when I listen to people speak, I can immediately start to discern like, and I can also hear more truth. So like, there's this one guy, I'll just start with this, where like I followed him for so long. When I say so long, like 2 years dedicated to him. Like he got me through some of the darkest nights of the soul of my spiritual journey. And now when I listen to him, I can hear all kinds of things. And I'm like, oh, that's filtered through your ego. That's wounding. That isn't true. Where are you getting that from? And that's no judgment to him. But when I was in it and when I didn't know and I was more disconnected, I had no idea that there may not be truth in what he is preaching or speaking of or giving advice to. Because there's a lot of people out there who are always like giving advice to you, like telling you what spirit is saying. It's like, how do I know that that's coming from actual divinity and not being filtered through your wounds? And that's another reason too that I stopped going to psychics, because I realized so many of them, they were being filtered through their wounding and all of their programs and all of their stuff, where I was like, I had to take a step back, which was also a rude but very necessary part of my path in discernment of subtle energies.
There's so many ways we can take this podcast already. I love it. Let's start with what you started with, speaking about teachers, right? So there's a lot of people out there in the spiritual community which are calling themselves teachers, right? And a teacher is somebody that has actually become what it is that they're teaching about, not somebody who's just read a book about it. So if I was thinking about a basketball teacher, let's take it a bit back to elementary school, I wouldn't seek out a basketball teacher that read a book on how to shoot a basketball and how to dribble a basketball.
Right.
I would seek out a teacher that knew how to dribble and shoot a basketball. And that's where we're at. There's so many people out there because we've grown up, and I am like, put my hand up, I have fallen into this category so hard that, like you said, when I first started moving onto this awakening path, all I did was consume spiritual knowledge. It was everything. I read all the books, I was listening to all the podcasts, and I could speak the speak. You know, I knew some
Use the
stuff.
lingo.
I knew the lingo. I could spit, right? But all I was doing was regurgitating knowledge. None of it was embodied.
Yeah.
I hadn't truly experienced the words that I was reading. Some of it might have hit truth. Some of it I may have experienced to some degree. And this is what's being repeated out there, is we've grown up in this world where all we're taught is to memorize. We go to school and it's multiple choice questions. We're not taught to think for ourselves. Ellie, as you mentioned, you're in a religion it's forced upon you, and you're indoctrinated and brainwashed to just believe what somebody tells you, and then you just repeat it and regurgitate it. Instead of a true teacher is somebody who's become and experienced that. And that is what drew me so hardcore to Rachel, because I could feel the words of truth that she was speaking. I could feel that when she was speaking about healing and elevating and seeing your shadow and healing your blind spots and all this kind of stuff, it wasn't coming from a place of, oh, I've read a book on this and I know what to do. Oh, I've got a degree in this, I know what to do. It's coming from a place of, I know what to do because I've done this. I've become this, and you can too. And that's a true teacher. It comes from wisdom and experience, and that can only be gained by doing it yourself. And there's so many people out there who call themselves spiritual teachers who are not. They just understand spiritual concepts, and they read books or they hear other podcasts and they just regurgitate what they, and I fall into that category. I'm not judging that or shaming that. Like, I've 100% done that in the past. Before I met Rachel in this work, I was trying to be a coach, but I actually hadn't healed anything. I was just going to regurgitate all of the knowledge that I'd learned from all the podcasts and books and other people that I'd listened to. I really wanted to help because I knew what it was like to suffer. But I was just repeating the same stuff that I'd heard. I wasn't actually becoming the teachings and teaching from that place. And so there's so many people out there which fall into that category. And that can be really confusing, because when you're just coming from knowledge in your mind, you can't effectively and actually teach somebody the actual steps. You're just telling them more things to learn and concepts to understand and memorize. And that's not to say none of that stuff has no use. It's there to support the process of integration. And that's obviously what we do every day, is that process of integration. And as you integrate, you actually get to understand that knowledge from yourself on your own deeper level.
Yeah, Rachel has in one of her teachings, she says, a true spiritual teacher is not here to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And I just love that. And, I, without saying names, okay, I went to this event about a year ago where there was a speaker there, and the speaker is pretty well known. He's got a lot of followers. He's got a lot of people, coming to his stuff. And I sat through his, lecture, whatever it may be. And all I did was I checked my judgment program because it was definitely there. And when I checked it and I opened and I just listened and I just heard him speak, everything that came out of that man's mouth, he had gotten from a book. And it was like I could name the books that he just brought all these one-liners out from, like things like love is greater than fear and things like that. Like all of these things that like we've read a million times. And he's just done a really good job of congregating all of it and then creating it in his brand. And you have all of these people who are so disconnected, who are so hungry to not be in suffering, to not be in pain, who are looking to other people for answers. And that's what draws them into these very false teachers, people who are just really good businessmen or businesswomen, who know how to market, who have seen how much money this could bring, how much success it could bring. And they just go in there and they do suck it all dry for what it is. And it has been a very it's been to be honest with you, there's been grief in it, because you want to help people. Like, you want to help humanity rise their level of consciousness. You want people to get out of suffering, and then to enter the spiritual matrix and see all of the frauds and the what do you call those people? What do you call them? The people, what's that word? Anyways, people that are just basically frauds. I forget the word, but it starts with a C. It'll come to me. But who are just milking it for the money, and who are weaponizing and manipulating people's pain because they read a bunch of books and now they know some things because they're really good at memorization, or they're really good at manipulation. I mean, some of these quote unquote fake pseudo spiritual teachers out there are really good at manipulation. They're really good at acting like they're really healed and whole. And I remember this guy that I'm talking about, off when the cameras were gone, somebody asked him, like, how did you get to where you got to? And his answer was, well, ayahuasca and mushrooms healed all of my emotions. And he's like, I did it 3 times and it healed everything. And I was like, that's bullshit. That is fucking bullshit. Like, everybody knows that no matter how much plant medicine you do, it doesn't fucking heal your emotions. That doesn't even make sense. And that's also so dangerous, because you're telling people that something outside of you is going to heal you, which is what religion has literally brainwashed all of us to believe, which is why most of these people are so disconnected, looking at Jesus to heal me, save me. And that's exactly the same side of the coin. And what's sad about it, and the grieving process about it, is that why can't we all just be connected to our divinity and know that what we are doing is not divinity? It's darkness, and there's evil, all attached to that. To come back to, let's do the real work so we can actually help humanity rise and come back to what we are. And so that's also been really difficult for me. I've had to move through a lot of programs of hate and like bitterness. I also have so much childhood stuff around the church and religion, and my mother around all of this stuff. And so all of that's beautifully combined has been a very grueling process to see through the illusions of all of that, but also so grateful that I can, because I really feel for people out there who are tricked and totally hypnotized by these things that are completely false.
Yeah, and from the way that I see it, I don't feel like this person, for example, this guy who, is a fake spiritual teacher, in his mind, he probably really does think that he's doing a service. And there might be a level in his heart that he really does want to help humanity. And there are, I'm assuming, many people like that. But from their programming, they don't realize, what they're doing or creating, because they don't know any different. They don't understand that leading people down this path, or maybe they do, I don't know. But I'm going to give some people the benefit of the doubt from my own understanding, because I was there like 4 years ago. I really genuinely wanted to help people. And I just thought, because I was in my head, that this was, what everyone does. This is how you do it. Like, I'm going to help people. I'm going to coach people. But I hadn't evolved into a being that could actually energetically help somebody. And that's kind of like how I see a lot of these people. At the time, I was doing it from what thought like was a good place. But now I've elevated more. I can look back at that version of me and realize, no, I had no idea really what I was talking about. I just filled my mind. And that's just the conditioning that we have. And Rachel talks about this all the time, how we've lost the ability to hear truth, the fourth way of oneness, the way of truth. And we can't hear that. We can't hear when somebody is speaking from a place of truth, and some of us can. So if that's you, beautiful. And maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you're already there, because the first time I heard Rachel on a podcast, her vibration, her integrity, her purity, her level of truth, it pierced all of my programs of lacking of trust and belief, and it hit me straight in the heart. And it's what brought me onto this path. It's what made me, want to learn from her, because I could feel there was something way deeper than anything else that I've heard out there that was vibrating deep within my soul. And I don't find that really anywhere else. And it's because a lot of the people out there that are teachers are not actual teachers. They're just regurgitating knowledge. And this is the shift. Like, humanity is starting to wake up. And so there's all these people like, oh, come do this, thing, and it will heal you forever. And, humanity does its duality, its flip flop. And we then be like, oh, this is it. This is it. And in reality, there's just a lot of people out there which are bullshit. And it's really tough. And for me, what it brings up, I used to listen to a lot of people that channel alien beings, or interdimensional beings, or angels. And I started hearing these contradictory things between different sources, some of Rachel's teachings, other people's teachings who I believe as truth. And it brings up this part of me that just gets so lost in my head, and I don't know what to trust and what to believe. And it makes me panic. It makes me spiral into anxiety. And I realized last week when I was in the gym, I'd heard something right before I went in on TikTok. And it like kind of came up against all the beliefs I had. It was about a particular person that we could say is in the spiritual matrix, who I thought is maybe, doing a service for humanity. And this person presented that maybe they're not. And then that leads me just to question. I'm just stuck questioning, well, who do I trust? Who do I believe? And ultimately it's back to this kid. And I know I spoke about this before. This child who is really worried because I can feel my mom and dad are having disagreements. And in their fighting and their conflict, it's scaring me because I feel like something bad's going to happen and they may, break up. And that scares, as a 3-4-year-old child, that scares the living bejesus out of me. And it created a lot of anxiety. And I remember I've had a few of these memories come back of being in my room really young and just listening to my parents argue from upstairs, and it just scaring me shitless. And yeah, every time that this happens, it brings up that wounding of, oh, and this is how the wounding kind of manifests. Is I would then talk to my mom and be like, is everything okay? She'd be like, yeah, everything's fine. Of course she's not going to tell her child, well, actually me and your father just got into a massive argument, and well, that's all normal. But she's going to put on a happy face because she's a mother. And same with my dad. Like, that's what any parent would probably do. But from my understanding, I could feel that she was lying in that moment. And so that meant I couldn't trust what I felt, and I couldn't trust what she says. And so when it comes to different teachers that I'm listening to, teachers or people that are channeling, like, and they're saying different things, it brings up this wounding of, I can't trust what they're saying, and I can't trust what I feel. And the more that I'm able to heal this, I feel I'm able to feel into the truth, and I'm not projecting onto them as much. And I'm able to listen more from with an open heart and be like, okay, this feels like truth, and this maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But it's allowing me to come more to a place of neutrality. But I've not got to the bottom of it. But it's definitely got a lot better over the last couple of weeks as I've gone into this wound and it's been showing up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're like, yeah, and every parent, would lovingly say, I'm like, I know my parent. But yeah, you know, there was this huge phase that I moved through where like every friend that I made was like a psychic who would channel. Okay. Oh my God, it was a brutal time. Um, so I was like, I want to be friends with these people. I was running a superiority inferiority program where I thought they were more superior than me because they could channel this. And they, I had a friend who could channel Michelangelo, and I had another friend who could channel, this, goddess and blah, 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 all stuff. And the lesson for me in all of that was, do you know when you're unhealed and you're not really doing the inner work, and just because you have these gifts, it leaves an opening for entities to hop on. And when I started to really understand all about like entities and things like that, I mean, it shocked me. I had no idea. I had no idea that was even a thing. Like growing up, like you learn about like Satan and stuff, but like you don't learn about like entities hopping on you and like taking over you, or, puppeteering you, or all these things. And so that was a huge shock for me too. So a lot of people that I would listen to that would channel these, like Danny was talking about, the interdimensional beings. I mean, like everything they said, I was like, well, that must be true because, well, she's channeling up Pleiadian. Pleiadians know more than we do. So, that's true. And I believe that. And then I walk around and I would tell people everything about this channel and blah, blah. And now I'm in a place where, yeah, I'm weary of all of that. And I really don't listen to anyone anymore. Like I only listen to teachings that are going to help me become a being of oneness, like straight up. And that really dwindles down to one teacher. And the beautiful and most profound thing about Rachel is that what she teaches us is to connect back to our internal power. It's not worship me, look at what I can do. It's none of that bullshit. It's I'm here to teach you how to become a being of oneness consciousness, because people think that this is the age where Christ consciousness is coming back. Like Christ consciousness is already done. The next level is oneness consciousness. And that's what many of us are being called to become, which means where am I in separation that I need to heal to come back to oneness? And it is constantly about connecting back within. It's constantly about connecting back to the power within. And that's what I'm here to do. I talk about this women's retreat that I went to a lot, where I had all of these like spiritual influencers that I really liked and looked up to, who channeled this and who channeled that. And they were part of this tribe and that part of this tribe. And I went to this retreat. And after 3 days, I came home and I unfollowed every single one of them, because while I was with them, I was like, what is any of this? Like, what is all this that you guys are pulling and doing? Because none of this is actually helping any of us come back and reconnect. And it was just all of these experiences that allowed me to know that, Ellie, yeah, you can't trust anybody out there, right? But here's a teacher who's going to teach you how to start trusting yourself. And trusting yourself is learning how to build safety within yourself, how to really truly love the pain, like all of these things. And so it's been quite the journey with all of that. And I'm grateful for it, but also like I would never repeat it because of how much I had to go through to get all these lessons and all of these cycles of wisdom that I had to move through, and these initiations to get to a place where I had to shut off all the noise and come back to like, what am I here to do? Oh, okay, I'm here to be a human being on earth. I'm not here to be in the astral. I'm not here to like be in Lyra. I'm not here to do all, like, I'm here to be a human being. And as a human being, I've been in suffering for a very long time. And I can feel that my soul is here to really do the big thing, which is to come back and connect back to my divinity. So what are the steps that I need to learn to become that? And when I did that, I became more grounded, right? I wasn't getting lost in all of the sauce. I was just focusing on my path and my journey, and knowing that as I do this, I'm here to help the world and the people who come into my life to do this. And this is what we came here to do. And that to me is like what we all should be focusing on. And so to anyone out there who's really like listening to a bunch of people, like my challenge to you would just be like, just feel. And also identify programs that get activated and run when you're listening to them. Is there judgment? Is there superiority? Is there inferiority? All of these things. Because the more you do that, the more you'll be able to sift through the pseudos and then the real ones.
Yeah, and I'm probably still gonna listen to some people. For me now,
Danny does like listening
I
to
love it.
people. Yeah, you do.
I love it. And one of the things that I'm feeling, I listen with an open heart and an
Mhm.
open mind, and I'm like trying to feel where they're coming from. Where are they pulling this from? Does it feel like it's coming from purity, integrity, fully? Or is there 99% truth and 1% distortion?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I actually feel when I listen to this person? And this is the journey that everyone has to go through. And for me, like, it just brings up so much of my wounding of not being able to trust and feeling like none of this is real, and gets me trapped in my mind. And if that's you, just come back to your heart, do the work. And it's really interesting when there's this one podcast that I listened to that really sparked this. And I listened to the same episode again yesterday, and I took away something completely different. And I was able to see past my programming and feel into what was happening. And what it felt like is the person was speaking truth, but it was being filtered through their programs. So I could feel both truth and mindy energy, which was really interesting. Like, I'm hearing the truth, but through somebody else. It didn't come from its original. The truth didn't come from its like original pure source. And this goes back to what we were speaking about earlier about like teachers just regurgitating things when it's not truly coming from a place of wisdom, of true experience. It's just like repeating, and you can feel that in other people. You can feel when someone's regurgitating stuff. I'm sure I've done it a bunch on this podcast. I challenge anyone to go back and try and feel into that. I'm never trying to, and yeah, I enjoy it. There's a part of me that I'm super curious, and we're not here to say don't listen to or do listen to anything, but from my experiences, just question and a healthy curiosity of where is this information coming from. And just because they say they're channeling Lady and whatever doesn't mean that that's truth.
Yeah.
And that's where like I got hooked probably a couple of years ago, when I was like, oh my god, there's all this information out here, especially if you're going like Gaia TV. There's just so many different channels when you can kind of open yourself up to a different history of humanity, which I aligned with so much more than the scientific one that I'd heard. And at the end of the day, it's like you never know what you can trust. You have to become the way of trust yourself, and that requires being able to hear truth, and that is a journey. And it's okay if I'm certainly not there. I know there are other people in our organization who can hear truth much deeper than most of us. I remember the the first time I really realized that Jesus was real. And it was before starting this work, and I was hiking on the Colorado Trail, and I'd spent the afternoon just sat in contemplation because it was raining, and I was in my tent, and I'd smoked a little bit of cannabis, and I was listening to Alan Watts, and he was speaking about Jesus, and it was for the first time I heard truth, and I was like, oh my god, he was real. It was like I remembered in that moment, and it struck something deep within me. And I'm looking forward to that aspect of me coming online all of the time and integrating that ability to always hear truth. And I think it's hard right now because humanity is so conditioned and brainwashed to just live in our minds and not live in our hearts. And that's the journey. That's part of the journey.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So to anyone out there, you just keep going inward. The more you go inward, the more powerful you get, and you'll be able to discern all of these things because you'll be able to feel, and you'll be connected to your heart, like Danny said. It's so beautiful. So to anyone out there, if you want to work with us one-on-one, or you want to join our group class called The Power Within, it is the foundational work. here at Masters of Self University. You can set up a free consultation with us at mastersofselfuniversity.com. Join our free Discord community. It's all of us coaches. Rachel's in there, clients, people who are just really, really interested in her teachings and things like that. So we share a lot, give advice, all of that stuff. So join us over there and share, subscribe, like, comment on this podcast. It really helps us to keep doing this for free. And until next time, we will see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.